Hey there, Steve Brossman here from Business Online TV, and I am promising you a very lively interview this morning because we've got Geraldine Mockler from SAS Your Business. Welcome along.
Thank you.
Now, I've been trying to put you in a box. You're one of Australia's leading consultants that facilitates improvement in businesses, and I'm really uncomfortable putting you in that box because there are so many facets to what you have done, you do, and now what you are going to do, that we really do need to get into the nitty-gritty and find out a little bit more about you.
Okay.
Let's get stuck into it because it's not going to be long before you find out she's got an accent. It's a pretty strong UK accent. So tell us about what you used to do in the UK before you came over here to Australia.
Well, a few years ago, I was working for McDonald's. That was my first real job in life, and did a lot of work in taking the Golden Arches and anglicising it. And I suppose one of the key things that involved was some of the management programs that were in place were very Americanised. So it was about taking those programs and making them into how we could be successful in the UK. And one of the other major things was around franchising, which was something that hadn't been done in the UK before, or was not expected to be done in the UK, and what I did was put the program together and was involved with training the first franchisee in the UK.
You also facilitated and worked with the team in putting in the first drive-throughs and right at the forefront of something new totally in the UK.
Yeah, so with the drive-through, again, it was a big milestone for the UK to have a drive-through because there's a lot of legal things around drive-throughs in the UK that you would never probably appreciate in this country. So one of the things that I was involved was implementing the first drive-through, and that was in Manchester. And then as a result of that, some of the other work that we anglicised was the types of conferences that you could have. And one of the things that I actually instigated was the introduction of an English way of conducting a conference. It was an annual thing that was done with the managers, and we actually used, for those people from the UK, a company called the Krypton Factor, which was a major TV programme, and we actually brought the Krypton Factor to McDonald's.
So you really stepped outside the square and really made a difference in the UK and being able to change and implement something quite new over there.
Yeah, and it was very, from the business's perspective, it was very stimulating because it was something that had to be done in terms of, the culture in the UK is very different to American culture for obvious reasons, and so it was important for the business to be able to move forward in that regard. But also, it was seen as a flagship for McDonald's, the UK market. So,
fantastic. Yeah. Now you moved from the food industry into the banking industry, and with again dramatic success.
Yeah. So when I first started consulting, one of the key things, I actually worked with a major bank in the UK, and I worked with them in terms of developing their forecast from what they really wanted to achieve in terms of loans and credit card applications. And what we implemented with them was a process which enabled the whole business to be able to see how successful they were. And as a result of that, they achieved the success they'd never achieved before in terms of their forecast and the actual results. So yeah.
Fantastic. Now, 22 years ago, you came over to Australia for a very short trip, but
I
I hear upon landing you got a rude awakening to our culture.
I did, yes.
Tell us about
Well,
that.
it was very interesting because I'd been asked by a CEO in the UK for the company that we were consulting to make sure everything worked really well in Australia because there are a bunch of layabouts who spend their time on holiday, and I arrived the weekend of the Melbourne Cup in Victoria, and I was listening to conversations like, "Oh, well, we're having tomorrow off. We're having, we don't actually come in on a Monday this week because it's the Melbourne Cup on Tuesday." And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, what have I come to?" And so I quickly learnt about the culture of Australia, and particularly how Melbourne Cup stops a nation.
It does stop the nation.
It stops the nation. So that's always my little segue into learning about Australian culture.
Now, you didn't leave.
No.
And we didn't kick you out.
No.
But you've been working with some sensational and some big companies over here, and again with some great results. Can you tell us just a few of those?
Yeah, so over here I've worked, in many different industries, from mining, where I've worked with BHP and Rio fairly recently. I've also been involved with the banking industry quite heavily. I did a lot of work for BT Financial Group, particularly around when they were having to reduce some of their costs in the sort of the late 90s, and I've also done work with manufacturing environments and also quite a lot of work with utilities and telecom. So I've done a lot of work with Transpower over in New Zealand. So my stretch has gone over the Tasman. They don't like my accent over there, actually. So quite a long reach of businesses and different kind of industries.
Yeah. So one of your fortes, from what I've been hearing, is you actually go into different organisations and find, I guess you could call them hidden profits and different ways that they could do things, systemise and really turn the company around to increase their profits and a lot of savings as well.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, it's quite a different way of thinking, because what I try and get organisations to do is think differently about how they do things. Because most organisations, they kind of know where they want to go, but what they don't really understand is how they're getting there and what success they want to achieve as a result. So what I tend to do is work with how they can take the strategy they're looking for and turn it into success. And often that's something that a lot of organisations find difficult to do. That turning of how you take strategy into the business. So
I guess that fits in with your SAS, because you're working with the strategy that they want and you're working towards the success, but it's the action in the middle that you can come in and help them with.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the key thing, is that what I find with businesses is that they often see the success that they're looking for, or they've got numbers that tell them how well they're doing, but do they really know what's actually happening in the organisation? So, SAS, which is Strategy, Action, Success, is about getting to grips with what actually happens within the organisation, both in terms of how people behave with each other, and also the processes that are used, and also how the organisation is actually set up for that success.
Excellent. Now, typically, what size businesses do you work with now?
Look, I'm still happy to work with the big organisations, as we've mentioned, but typically maybe 200-300 people, where there are clearly lots of different teams working towards the same goal, but not quite sure if they're all aligned about how they do that, because that's one of the big problems that I've observed in businesses. So yeah, usually that kind of mark, and businesses which maybe have offices in different parts of the country. They're they're not just based in one place.
Now, let's take another step sideways, because you are doing things different to most people out there. And quite often when companies engage consultants, they say, okay, we've got a consultant coming in for the next 3, 4, 5 months, and we're really not sure how much it's going to cost us, particularly in this new economy where things are tight. You've actually developed a system where you can go in within 7 days, find out what they need to do, and pretty well for a set fee.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that is unheard of, but tell us a bit more about that.
So, I mean, I suppose that, if I'm honest about, the world of consulting, a lot of people spend time in businesses to be able to build time. Let's be fair about it. So I think, however, if you ask most consultants, that, most people who have the experience that I have can, in a very short space of time, give people the feedback they need on what it is that their organisation needs to do differently to actually achieve the success they're looking for. So the way I look at it is, the quicker you can give people the feedback they're looking for, the quicker they can get going with what it is they want to achieve, and actually then make sure that the actions that I can provide them with that are going to achieve that success are implemented quickly as well.
So that's pretty well why you've come up with the 7-day SAS, where you actually, let's coin a phrase, get behind enemy lines, get down in the trenches, find out exactly what they need, and deliver a review of what they do need and give them some action steps to take it forward in 7 days.
Yep. And it's about working with the people to do that. So there's a lot of things that we do in terms, I don't want to go into the details of what we do, but there's a lot of, information that we gather from the people within the business. So it's very much working alongside the people in the business. So much as we need to speak to the senior managers and the exec of the business, it's also getting even to the level of the processes that are used, because often in organisations, the processes that are being used are actually not supporting the strategy. And that's one thing we both look at in terms of how the organisation is set up, but also how they use the processes to support that strategy. So it's very much working with the people,
Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there that are in business, in particular the size that you were just mentioning there, that really do want to have something quick and fast, and to go in and get a report or get a review to say, okay, this is what we need to do, and they can actually fit that straight within their budget straight away, and really streamline their processes, their systems, and be able to certainly generates more profits.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, the key thing is in terms of the price that we charge for this review is really within the realms of anybody's budget, I would think, in most organisations in the size that I've spoken about. So what I'm looking to do is to make that decision easy for people. It's not something they're going to have to necessarily take to the board to get a decision. It's something they can probably make a decision on there and then to actually decide to go in and do an SAS.
Now, you've got one step further and stepping outside the boundaries of most people in their consulting. You've put a guarantee on what you do.
Yes.
So you go in there, you find the money. If they're not happy with what you found, don't pay you.
Don't pay me, yeah. Give me the watch back, yeah.
You could put it that way. But the way you're doing things really just makes sense. If I'm a business and I want to find out how I could take my business forward, if somebody says, give me 7 days, I'm going to give you a review of what you should be doing. If you don't like it, don't pay me.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're in tomorrow.
Yeah. And look, in the 20 or so years I've been in the consulting world, I think I've only been into one business where I haven't been able to say to them, here's the benefits. And that was because what they were asking us to do was 10 steps beyond where they were. So my advice I gave them was very different what they were looking for. But the key thing is that, having the experience that I've got and the background that I've got, usually the way in which the business operates can be seen pretty quickly, and I can support the business in how they need to move forward.
So after all of that, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there that will want to find out more about what you do and how they can contact you. There are going to be some details down below in the video itself. But how can they contact you?
So if you go to our website, which is sasyourbusiness.com, all the contact details you need are on there. So we look forward to hearing from people.
I told you it was going to be a lively interview, and we didn't even get into some of the sporting stuff that we were talking about before, but that can be for another day. Thank you so much for coming in. If I had a couple of extra 100 people working for me, I'd be queuing up to get you as
Great.
well. But we might get you to give us a bit of a hand anyway. Steve Brossman here from Business Online TV, and we will have another great interview for you guys shortly. Cheers.